Well, hello everyone. So today we're going to take some time in a text in 2 Corinthians 6. And I might add that this is going to be the last video I'm going to do for a little while. Perhaps we'll pick this back up again in the fall, but we're going to give it a break for a little while. And I recognize that many of you have listened in every week and you found these weekly videos very encouraging. When we set out to do this originally, it was to serve a need where all of us couldn't be together. And so we had our Sunday morning services, but we also wanted to be able to provide other reflections because we're not able to be in life groups and weren't able to do a lot of other things that could be nurturing to the soul. But we just continue to do it for a season. But we feel like, let's give it a break for now. Perhaps we'll pick it back up in the future. And if that's something that would be a blessing to you, you can certainly let us know. But for now, at least through the end of summer, I'd like to make this the last video. And I want to take us into 2 Corinthians 6 because I think it's one of the more encouraging passages about how God goes before us, has our back as well, and is protecting us from the enemy's schemes so that we can continue to do his mission here on this earth. And then to see how God uses weaponry differently than we do. And I believe will point to the fruit of the Spirit, which we've been talking about in our Sunday morning services. So the context is the Arameans have been sending raiding parties into Israel, where they'd go to a small village and basically plunder it and take advantage of an unprotected village. And so obviously the king of Israel needs to protect his own, and so he's trying to chase and find where this army is from the Arameans. But then meanwhile the Arameans were much stronger than Israel, and so if the primary force of the Arameans was around, the Israelites needed to know where they were so they wouldn't be caught off guard and annihilated. God was using Elisha to basically reveal the exact whereabouts of the Arameans to the point where they become alarmed, like, how is it that Israel knows everything we're doing? So that's where we're going to pick it up. It's in verse 8 here, and it says, "Now the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, I will set up camp in such a place. The man of God sent word to the king of Israel, beware of passing that place because the Arameans are going down there." And by the way, that man of God is Elisha. So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by the man of God. Time and again, Elisha warned the king so that he was on his guard in such places. This enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, "Tell me, which one of us is on the side of the king of Israel?" "None of us, my lord, the king," said one of his officers, "but Elisha the prophet who is in Israel tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom." "Go find out where he is," the king ordered, "so I can send men and capture him." The report came back, "He is in Dothan." Then he sent his horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. When the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. "Oh no, my lord, what shall we do?" the servant asked. "Don't be afraid," the prophet answered. "Those who are with us are more than those who are with them." And Elisha prayed, "Open his eyes, Lord, so that he may see." Then the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. As the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, "Strike the army with blindness." So he struck them with blindness as Elisha had asked. Elisha told him, "This is not the road, and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for." And he led them to Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, "Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see." Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were, inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, "Shall I kill them? My father, shall I kill them?" "Do not kill them," he answered. "Would you kill those you have captured?" with your own sword or bow? Set food and water before them so that they may eat and drink and then go back to their master. So he prepared a great feast for them, and after they had finished eating and drinking, he sent them away, and they returned to their master. So the bands from Aram stopped raiding Israel's territory. Love that story. If there is so-called a child story that I cling to and love, it's that one. You have this servant who's just looking out for his master. He comes outside the home only to see that they've been surrounded by an enemy that wishes to capture them or kill them. And of course you'd be afraid. But Elisha had this strange calm to him. He knew that he was doing the Lord's work, and that if you're doing the Lord's work, his protection is greater than anything the enemy could throw at you. And so he simply prayed, God, help my servant to see what I can see. And then that servant could see the armies of the Lord. What a powerful moment. And then I love what happens next. So the servants now had a teachable lesson that the armies of the Lord are greater than anything the enemy could throw at us here on this earth. But then there's a lesson of what can win battles more greatly. So they lead, he prays for the army of Arameans to become blind. So they are blinded. And then he tells them, follow me. I'm going to show you where you can find this man you're looking for. Of course, they're being led by that very man, but they then go to Samaria, basically being led right into the presence of the armies of Israel. Then he asks, okay, Lord, now let them see. Then they can see that they're surrounded. But here's where it's different. Their hearts were to gain things for themselves, to destroy people so that they can become rich. Now they're surrounded by the armies of the Lord, and they were after Elisha because they knew he was a prophet of the Lord and was revealing things about their whereabouts that clearly he was an anointed man of God. And now they're surrounded by that man of God and the armies of God that are the armies of Israel. And so they expect to be treated in kind for the way they've been acting. But what does God do? He leads Elisha to say, no, you've already captured them. So now treat them as you would a captured people. And so what did they do? They fed them. They fed them, and it says they made a great feast. And as a result, they went away and were sent back to their master. And all of the raiding parties, all those things about trying to gain for themselves, done. It's ended. Because they realized, first of all, they came against God himself. Second of all, they were treated with kindness by that God. And they realized, why would we ever go against a God who is more powerful than us and whose heart is greater than ours? So I take that story and I apply it to our current context. I've talked to many people in the last few weeks who are just discouraged by, again, what they see going on in society that is definitely moving towards an anti-biblical view. We've seen how things have gone on in school districts and how the way of the world, the worldview that is secular and humanistic, is moving away from that which is biblical. And as Christians, we're figuring out, how do we respond? Well, I will tell you, we don't respond in the way the enemy behaves. The enemy is behaving where they are going for selfish means and selfish gain. But God's ways are different. That's where the fruit of the Spirit weighs in. Yes, there is a battle, and yes, we don't run away from the battle, but we go at it differently from the rest of the world. And in this case, when you treat your enemy with absolute kindness in spite of their vitriol language, when you choose a higher plane of dignity than they do, you might see a reaction to your kindness that's not great. But at the end of the day, you'll see that the battle will be ultimately won. And so I believe that the power of the Holy Spirit working through us, where love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness, faithfulness, and self-control, all those things can definitely lead to a person who is set up in battle against you to walking away and saying, I'm not going to fight that which is more powerful and better than I. And so we just have to trust in God's timing, trust in God's empowerment and his leadership, and not try to take things into our own hands. Because more than likely, then we would operate out of the flesh, which all we're doing is joining the enemy's schemes. So let's be different, and let's realize that our army that we serve a part of is greater than anything that sets itself up against us. And that through the power of the Holy Spirit in us, we can win battles through a weapon that is much different from the rest of the world. So, having said that, I trust that the rest of the summer will be an encouragement to you as you deeply dive into the Word and you walk by His Spirit. God bless, and may you see the chariots of God around you as you walk today.